About to get started here. Looks like we're good to go on YouTube. I know we're good to go on justinform.cam. Make sure we're good on Periscope. Good stuff, and I think we are good on Periscope also. All right, good stuff. YouTube. Oh, hi, Helen. Well, Helen let me know that we're good on YouTube. I was just about to say, give me a shout to make sure that we're good. On Periscope, if y'all don't mind giving me a little shout to make sure that we're good there. And I think we are. I'm good to go. All right. First of all, wherever, if first of all, good morning. Good morning. It's about 9:46 Eastern Standard Time. So my California people will have to catch this a little bit later, as I know a lot of you all are not up, unless you have to be at work at 9 a.m. Because if you're dealing with California traffic, then you're probably going to have to get up at about 5 to prepare for a 3-hour trip to work due to all the California traffic jams. Although your place of work is probably only about 15 minutes away. So, apologize. But you can listen to this on your radio if you're stuck in California traffic. But to my East Coasters who are on the way to work, I wish you safe travels, and thanks for tuning in to this early conversation that I think that we need to have about this Walkaway movement. It's frustrating to see people fall into the same traps over and over and over again. And I see the left falling into traps, and because I wouldn't say that I wasn't woke, but I wasn't anywhere near as woke as I am right now, and I wasn't as objective as I am right now. And so I would say that at once upon a time, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe I thought that some of these traps that people fell into were exclusively on the right. Obviously, later we come to find out that the left kind of gets played for fools all the time, right? Now, here's a problem with that. The right didn't stop all of a sudden falling into traps, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm one of those people who I acknowledge the realities going on within the neoliberal establishment, SJW left. But I'm also very aware, once again, of the realities and the happenings in the neoconservative SJW establishment. Right. There's no difference. I don't know if you know that, but there's no difference. If you are joining the political conversation, if you're engaging in political dialogue for the first time in 4 or 5 years, hell, even if this is your first time in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have come to light. Like, only those who have been actively involved in politics and actually understand the history of not only politics but of the world understand that the left didn't invent identity politics. I don't know if you all know this. The identity politics came from the right. It was literally politics surrounding the identity of being white and being better than other races. Like, that's where identity politics came from. There's people on the right who still do it. The Make America White Again guy from Texas. Like, well, Donald Trump played identity politics pretty much the entire election. He did it a little bit differently, but he played identity politics. He just didn't use the word race. Well, he did, but he kind of kept saying he was tired of politically correct culture, which to a degree I agree with. The politically correct culture has gotten a little bit out of hand, and I think that there is something to that statement. However, when you're saying that in such an inflammatory way, using generalizations like he did about the Mexicans and like he has before in the past, and you know who your crowd is dominantly. Who are the people who get most offended by politically correct culture? Those who are upset that they have to watch the things they say in front of people who may deem it insensitive. I call that just common courtesy. I'm not really a person that actually engages in the whole hyper political correctness. But for example, if I, as a black man or just a man in general, if someone asks me not to give my opinion at that point in time about a sexual assault situation, maybe they're having a discussion, because of common courtesy, I would respect that request. I probably personally wouldn't even engage in it because that's just something, when it's male on female sexual assault or even female on female sexual assault, then I would stay out of that conversation between two females unless I was actively invited in. So I consider that courtesy. And that's generally how I handle life, right? Like, when I'm going into a restaurant, I don't just sit at somebody else's table and try to start a conversation with them, and then if they got mad at me when I'm going, that's political incorrect. You're being politically correct. Who says I can't sit at your table? You don't own the restaurant. You need to open up your mind. Like, that is where you get some of the political correctness, that this outrage in the anti-political correctness culture or anti-PC culture also, faux outrage. It's a desire to be able to say and do what you want without consequence and revel in the idea that you are once untouchable. What you were saying and doing was deemed acceptable because people were intimidated by cultural history, and that's just a fact. So my point is that people fall into traps all the time on both the left and the right. And now we even have some people who once considered themselves left, falling for a trap on the right that was laid because they see this wave online right now of angry former Democrats, angry former neoliberals, and they're taking advantage of it. And this isn't the first time that we've seen it. So with the Walkaway movement, we're just seeing a propped up establishment shill. Brandon Straka is a propped up establishment shill. He is baiting you into establishment rhetoric, and it isn't hard to see. I hate to break it to you all. Let me go ahead and give you another working example, because I don't want you to think that this is unique to Brandon Straka. Remember Candace Owens? I'm sure you all remember her. Only thing she ever talks about is how blacks victimize themselves. How interesting. Always, that's literally all she talks about, is blacks victimizing themselves. She doesn't drink now that she's joined a right-wing super PAC funded by the Koch brothers. But notice that all of her critiques are about the left, the establishment left, by the way. And they bring up the fringe establishment left because they don't want to discuss the nuance of the actual progressive, if you want to call it left. They don't want to discuss the populist movement. They want to make it seem as if everybody who is establishment or neoliberal is representative of everyone else who considers themselves a leftist. She never says a negative word about the Republican Party, nor does she ever say a negative word about Donald Trump. Never. Not one time. She's joined a super PAC, or they don't consider themselves a super PAC. They consider themselves a nonprofit. But Turning Point USA, the person in charge of it is named Charlie Kirk. He had to fire the woman who was second in command because she literally said, "I hate all black people," like all of them. Like, she made it very clear that she meant everybody, and she didn't get fired until until she left, or excuse me, until that text got out. The employee left, and then she was eventually fired by Charlie Kirk because it was hitting news. But shortly after that, Charlie Kirk then said that we should have more people like her in this world. What's even scarier to me is that Charlie Kirk, in all likelihood, knew this about this woman before hiring her, or she wouldn't have been so comfortable having this conversation amongst other employees in the leadership. So Candace Owens, I'm assuming, this is presumably, knowing all this is like regular news, so I didn't think that it would be, would you not research your employer before you go pretend to be the speaker for them? I hope that you would, and I would hope that Candace would. But Candace Owens knew this, and is pretending as if the problem with racism or victimization or self-victimization is unique to the left. Ben Shapiro cries every single time that somebody says something remotely, not even outlandish, but just like they make a claim about something. Somebody talked about how powerful the movie Black Panther was for black people, and it was. I hate to break it to you, but it's a thing. It addressed some serious systemic infrastructural issues within the black community, within African American culture versus African culture, like how the military industrial complex has used minorities. It was powerful. Ben Shapiro was really upset by people saying that it was powerful. He was really upset by it. That is an outrage culture. He would just rather us not talk about the realities of it. It really made him uncomfortable. But she doesn't call out people like Ben. She just said that he's naggy. That's about it. But are we going to pretend like the right doesn't have a long history of racism? She's correct that there is a Democratic plantation. So your solution to secede, if you will, from the Democratic plantation is to not, perhaps find an independent plantation where all values are all people's goals are centered around the same vision, which is progression and unity. And we can discuss the nuance on the way, but we all have the same goals and we all have the same understanding of the world, that at least the establishment, we know for a fact, there's no there's no Republican or Democrat. It is only a dollar sign, period, point blank. But no, her solution was a Hegelian one, which is, if I'm not Democrat, then that absolutely must mean I must be a Republican. Duh. So if black people are victimized by the Democrats and then ignored, that must mean that Republicans love black people, right? That's what that must mean. So as she starts counting her bank account, because she got a lot of M's in it now, we start noticing this pattern, right? Candace Owens ends up on Fox News. She ends up on Dave Rubin. Joe Rogan even brings her on to hear her point. That's how you know you're blowing up. When Joe Rogan has you on, you're doing something with your life. And it's the same talking points over and over and over again. And then you realize after you listen to Candace Owens, because Joe Rogan does have this ability to make people loosen up and act more natural and be more of themselves than they normally would. And she's just a disturbed human being who's had a traumatic past. And she had, I even tweeted about this, whenever somebody can go from 100% super duper pro Bernie to 100% super duper I'm all about Trump, then there's a problem. It means you have no critical thinking skills. I don't want to be a dick about it, but I kind of need to be a dick about it, because that's exactly what it means. Okay? Now, how is this similar to Brandon Straka? Well, Brandon Straka was super neoliberal Hillary supporter, apparently. According to him, he cried on election night. According to him. Well, let's be very clear about something. What do we know about most Clinton supporters? What was the justification? It's her turn. She won the popular vote. Did you see her on Ellen DeGeneres? Did you see her pull out her hot sauce? She's the most popular candidate in the country. She's the most qualified. Her victory was all but guaranteed. In other words, of course Tom Brady's going to win the championship. He plays for the Patriots. We don't care if Bill Belichick cheats. I'm just using this as an example. I am a big Tom Brady fan, although I do not like the Patriots. But I'm just saying. But we don't care if Bill Belichick cheated. That's our guy. We know they're going to bring it home because it's their time. It's their turn. That's why they're in the Super Bowl. They only win rings unless they're going against the Giants. But now we know it's the Eagles too. So, apparently it's just this thing about the NFC East that scares the hell out of the Patriots. But that's a different discussion. But it's like football, right? So it's a bandwagon front runner mentality that is easy to wrap your mind around because you don't have to do deep research. You don't have to question the identity of those you believed in, and also be self-aware of what you identify with and where your values stand as well. And so in his mind, there's two things. Well, Hillary wasn't the most popular. So who is? Trump, right? Between Trump and Bernie Sanders, but Hillary people are really scared to go to Bernie Sanders. But it's not unique to Brandon. I'm not going to say a lot of names, but let's be clear. You and I both know there are a lot of people out there who jumped on that Trump bandwagon after hopping right off of that Bernie bandwagon because there was a lot of money in it. Let's be very clear about that. Candace Owens being one of them. She was a hardcore Bernie supporter, had a website dedicated to trashing Trump, voted for Bernie, then voted for Hillary Clinton, and then all of a sudden she's the biggest Trump supporter ever in the history of the world. After working, I think she even worked on Obama's campaign, if I recall. Don't quote me on that. But at a low level, not like super high level. So same thing. That was the most popular candidate for him, and Trump is now in office, and there is also popularity surrounding the mass exodus of the Democratic Party, which I'm all about it. But that's where it stops. He says walk away. I want to walk away from the left. I want to walk away from PC culture. I want to walk away from the plantation, the totalitarian mindset of the left. The Democratic Party. Liberalism. And I'm like waiting like, okay. And also the Dems and the Democrats and the Democratic Party. Okay, and also the Democrats and CNN and MSNBC and New York Times and Washington Post, and you're walking away from and I was attacked for having an American flag on, and no, that's it. That's pretty much all I got. Next question, Judge Gene Shapiro. Bruh, when you hear someone who only talks about the left, the problems with the left, all the issues on the left, all the problems are on the left, left. Don't trust them any more than you would trust, a Sam Cedar or a David Pakman or a Neera Tanden or Joanne Reed or because all the problems for them on the right is the issue. It's all about the right. We can never talk about or question the Democratic Party or its motives. We can never say anything bad about the Democratic Party or you're a Trumpster. It is the same mindset. If you are going to walk away from anything, the only acceptable entity for you to walk away from is the establishment, period, point blank. If you think about it, why do you think Fox News has on Brandon Straka? You think it's because he's legitimate? Don't you think that it's a little suspicious that he's always on Fox News? What movement do you know, a legitimate movement, does Fox News give a whole segment to just to bolster and boost? You don't think that they could possibly be taking advantage of the anti-Democrat sentiment that's been, granted, albeit it's the Democrats' fault. It's their fault that they're going through these issues. But that doesn't mean you have to be silly enough to fall for it either. Like, it doesn't. Come on. Y'all are smarter than this. I know some of y'all out there talking about some Walkaway. I know pundits, quote unquote independent commentators, talking about Walkaway. Y'all know damn well this guy is full of shit. His acting profile is on IMDb. I'm not even exaggerating. Look it up. Look up Brandon Straka on IMDb. He literally was in the movie and his role was the reporter. And they even put his appearance on Judge Gene Shapiro on the IMDb website. They put it on there. IMDb is the Internet Movie Database, in case any of you were wondering. That is where actors put their profiles when they want to be discovered. Yeah. He's an actor. A little bit different than Candace Owens, but let's be very clear once again. They're not all that different. A little bit different than Milo Yiannopoulos, but let's be very clear once again. They're not all that different. David Rubin, the gay kind of conservative who won't admit he's conservative. He says, I'm a classical liberal. Because that's his stick, right? Being somebody on the left, or at least left-leaning, who invites a bunch of right-wing talking heads on to just, wow, yeah, wow. See, the left really should listen to you. Wow, that's amazing. That's cool. Wow, really? Oh, hey, don't forget to donate to my page. That's pretty much how David Rubin's show goes. Just like TYT only will come after the Democrats, like they come after obvious, like the Schumers of the world, Nancy Pelosi's, easy targets. But they won't come after the Democratic Party as a whole. The Democratic Party is 98% bad. I don't know what's hard to understand about that. The good Dems within the Democratic Party will tell you that the Democratic Party is 98% bad. The Republican Party is about 99.5% bad. So, if you think that it's only me who critiques the left and the right, it is not only me. I will ask you to reference and look up Colin Powell. Colin Powell, prior service, veteran, literally said that there are many members of my party who are racist. He is a Republican. He didn't say, and he's owning up to that, the fact that that is his party. Colin Powell said this. What, Colin Powell's a race baiter now? Because mind you, Colin Powell's like a hero in the minds of Republicans. Like those former like party, GOP, Grant good old boys, Republican. They love Colin Powell. When I tell you that clip got buried, it got buried fast. But you can find it. Colin Powell feels the same way about the Republicans as I do as a Democrat, although I was never part of the Democrats. But here's the thing, too. What you all don't get is, I feel the same way about the Green Party. And guess what? I feel the same way about the Libertarian Party. Am I saying don't join a party at all? No, that's actually not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is pretending like walking away from one party into another party that has the same infrastructural issues, into another party that has the same, if not worse, infrastructural issues, is not the way to pretend to be woke. It shows that that you're a slacktivist. Oh, I don't believe in Bernie Sanders anymore, so I'm a Trumpster. Trump never sold out, except for all the times that he quite literally sold you out. Like, I'm not one of those people in the camps of that Trump has been 100% taken over by the deep state. Not in one of those camps at all. But I am in the camp of that's literally how Trump built his career, and it'd be ignorant to think otherwise. Like, look it up. He used to literally bankrupt himself, but if you understand how bankruptcy laws work, when you have a corporation, you're just bankrupting your assets. So you'll give your assets, which includes your employees, back to these banks. But all the liquid that you've made is yours to keep. They can't come after it because you deposit your liquid into your personal account while keeping your assets and your corporate stuff. So all his employees would get fired. Buildings would be destroyed. Livelihoods would be destroyed. Trump would make, Trump is indeed a sellout. It's just he's a sellout of a different variety. Trump used to be a Democrat. He ran as a Republican. You might call that evolution. I call that opportunity. That's pretty much what he thought. Candace Owens used to be a hardcore Obama supporter, hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter, hardcore Trump hater, had a whole website dedicated to it. And all of a sudden, she's the biggest Trump supporter ever. And every black person always victimizes themselves, apparently. Way to generalize. And then on top of that, once again, you got this Brandon Straka guy, right? Hardcore Hillary supporter. And then all of a sudden, you jump over. Now, I just want to leave the Democratic Party, and every bad thing I have to say about the Democratic Party is valid, and every negative critique that I once had of the Republican Party is no longer valid. How does that make any sense? How? I'm legitimately curious, people. So when you jumped over an ideology, you all of a sudden stopped caring about single-payer health care? Like, that doesn't matter to you anymore? That's weird. You're all of a sudden not pro-choice. All of a sudden you go from being maybe an atheist to a super Christian like Candace Owens. Now she doesn't drink. She's all holy and godly. All of a sudden we're going to pretend like that's not the party that somebody was comfortable enough to run in, where they literally had the sign Make America White Again. Are we all of a sudden going to pretend like this isn't the same party who have passed extremely restrictive voter ID laws in the South, specifically where black areas are? Like, this is a fact. We're going to pretend this isn't a party of gerrymandering because they don't want to appeal to black voters at all? Like, I am no fool. I am very aware of the many problems with the Democratic Party, but that does not all of a sudden nullify the problems that the Republican parties have displayed for decades. The Republican Party, Mitch McConnell is the answer. So we run away from Debbie Wasserman Schultz right into Mitch McConnell's hand. So Bernie Sanders is a sellout, but Trump is clearly the third reincarnation of Jesus Christ. He would never sell you out to the establishment. Yeah, that's why he literally raised taxes over the next 10 years in that tax bill. Look it up. Candace Owens is all about neoliberal progressive bullshit, anti-Trump. The moment Trump wins, all of a sudden, you know what? There's a lot of money in this. I think I love Trump now. Some of those progressive talking heads, same thing. They won't ever have, and all they do is talk about the surface issues also. Don't get it twisted. When they talk about ICE, because it's easy to spot them. Ask them about ICE and how they feel about it. When I talk about ICE, Tim Black talks about ICE. Elizabeth Lee Voss writes about ICE. You know who I'm talking about. When we had these conversations about ICE, I'll say, actually, I do support the abolishment of ICE, but it's not for the reason that neoliberals are claiming. I want the abolishment of ICE because I'm very aware that ICE was only created as a deflection to distract from the military-industrial complex and how it's ravaged through Central and South America. ICE, we already had border patrol. We already had the DEA. We already had the ATF. So what exactly is ICE's purpose? That's the DEA is drug enforcement. ATF, pretty much same thing. We have the FBI and we have the CIA and we have Border Patrol. So why ICE is literally the customs. It's like immigration customs enforcement. It's the same thing as the DEA, Border Patrol, and like it's the same thing. The thing was, if you all recall, as I do, we ramped up a lot as far as the military-industrial complex was concerned in that time frame. And for Republicans to forget how much they supposedly hate big government, all of a sudden it's, yeah, we hate big government and regulation, except for when it's ICE. So we can trust the government, or excuse me, we can't trust the government. The government is corrupt. The government always messes up. The government is so bad. Look, the government has literally never done anything good. You want them in your healthcare? Okay, I'll take that. So we think that all of a sudden they just learn how to be competent during the creation of ICE, and that's it. That's when they grew competent, right? Really? Now they're competent. You see that's what I'm talking about. So, but if you look at both the left opportunists and the right opportunists, what do they both talk about? The abolishment of ICE is necessary. We have to have absolute open borders. And then on the right, we love ICE. We're championing ICE. I never heard you use the words ICE until President Trump got into office. Like, you didn't even know what the hell ICE was. Let's be very honest. Let's be very clear about that. Everybody has these strong feelings one way or another towards ICE. They didn't even know what ICE was or who it was or who was involved in it until about 4 months ago, if that. But that's all they talk about on their Twitters. They jump into the threads. They build themselves up off of it. Hate, 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 hate. Okay, well, how do we move forward? What do we do after we abolish ICE? If we do maintain ICE, how are we going to deal with the fact that almost 100% of their net increase in arrests have been for non-violent offenders who didn't even deserve to be pulled over? They didn't even deserve to have their house ran into. Their rights were violated. Everybody is entitled to a due process on this land if you are paying taxes. Everybody. Due process. So if you have one side of the fence, let's just call it the Candace Owens. I don't want to... Look, I'm about to slip up and start calling some people out that I don't want to call out right now. But we'll just go with the Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro's, we have to... ICE is the best thing that's ever happened to this country, despite the fact that they hate the big governments, which is literally what ICE was created by. It is the manifestation of a big government policy. But whatever. And then you have the left, which is abolish ICE. Okay? But has anybody ever asked why we're having these immigration problems to begin with? No, we can't talk about that. Why would we talk about that? That is totally unimportant. We have to talk about either abolishing ICE or not abolishing ICE. Okay, so now we have the Walkaway movement. Walk away from what? Once again, the left, Democrats, the left, Hillary Clinton, the left, SJWs, the left, PC culture, the left. Okay. Ben Shapiro isn't SJW PC culture all day, every day. He's just SJW PC culture on the right. He doesn't want to control your rhetoric and what you can and can't say, except for every single time he complains about someone saying that they don't prefer, Christianity, they prefer to be atheists, or if they give a speech about and they mention God's name, Ben Shapiro acts like it's the best thing in the world and that everybody hates God. Like, why can't we say God in schools? We should be able to say what we want. We should be able to do what we want. Wah. Like, but Ben Shapiro doesn't talk about the root of any of these issues either. So with the Walkaway movement, to pretend as if the Democratic Party is the sole problem, and then say walk away from the left, walk away from all this, left, and pretending that the right is so much better, it is laughable. It is disingenuous and it's intellectually dishonest. And if you are one of the ones hashtagging it, and if you are a pundit or a commentator, and you know better, like the moment that this kid appeared on Fox News, you should have known. And it wasn't like they were grilling him about it. They were like, oh my God, now you're seeing everything that we see. It's us on the right that are treated horribly. We're forced to acknowledge people's equal rights and get rid of Jim Crow laws. Can you believe that? It's disgusting. Can you believe that Colin Powell, who was also a Republican, even said our party was racist? The nerve of that guy. Mitch McConnell is an example of a upstanding citizen. He should have never been chased out, even though he's a corrupt establishment shill. Judge Shapiro, if you want to even call her that anymore. Like, she was legitimately playing the role. It's where you're being, if you're on the right, you're being victimized. So there may be an element of truth to that from their perspective, because you have to remember, those on the right who are big talking heads, they live in very liberal cities because, well, even though they hate liberal politics, they hate liberal rhetoric, and they hate liberal policy, they love that liberal money. So they live in the LAs and the New Yorks of the world, and they have to deal with maybe a lot of attacks, but it's because they're famous mostly, because, like, that's a thing, unfortunately. So, like, they know that they can get a reaction out of them, or they're trying to get a reaction out of them because they're famous, and they just happen to be on the right. But, like, that doesn't mean that that's the real world. Most of the country is red, or painted in red. Most of the country is white, like, not like a little bit, but like a lot. So there's that too. So to pretend like somehow being a conservative is the minority, there are more registered, or at least there were more registered Democrats, but that's only because of the high concentration of population and density of population in the big blue states like California and New York. Outside of that, even in New York City, if you go right outside of the city, it is mostly red. Like, right outside of the city, you don't even have to go to upstate New York. You can go to the back end of Long Island. More Trump signs that I see in Florida. So let's stop it's a psyop, people. It is a pitch. They got an actor who is literally on IMDb. Brandon Straka, look him up. He's on IMDb. Okay? I'm not exaggerating. He is an actor that they paid to take advantage of the anti-democratic party, anti-establishment left, anti-SJW, anti-PC culture sentiments that have manifested over the last year and a half or so. Mind you, a lot of these people who are quote-unquote walking away, they were kind of like conveniently progressive. Like, those people, it's kind of like, so on the right, remember I told you, like, there are people who are very against big government and the government being in your house, and until it's time for the government to get in your womb, or it's time for the government to implement ICE. That's really relatively a new. They think the government is bad until it comes to the government doing things that they want. So it's like that with the left, right? They loved Bernie Sanders. They love progressive movement until they say something that's low-key kind of racist, and then people are like, yo, bro, that's kind of racist. You shouldn't say something like that. Generalizations, very, very sharp. I've seen some stuff. Somebody, literally this one guy from the Green Party called somebody a jigaboo. Not even joking, talking about a young woman. And when you call them out, all of a sudden they're like, this is just SJW stuff. They play the victim, right? It's all white guys' fault. Like, no, nobody really said that, but, like, stop complaining. It's what you said was racist. It's not every white guy's fault that you just said some racist shit. Okay, so there's that. But they will make it like that. And so the left has its hypocrisy, the right has its hypocrisy, and you have people in the establishment with a lot of money on both sides who will pay to expose that hypocrisy and use it to their personal advantage. And Brandon Straka is yet another example of that. He is another Candace Owens. He is another Milo. Don't you remember that rhetoric they used to use during the election? If the right is so racist, then why do we have so much diversity? Look at Ben Carson and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and what's her name? The woman who was HP got fired because she sucked at her job. Like, even George Bush has a Mexican wife. Like, that was their argument. Like, I got 3 black friends, you only got 2. So we're not racist, clearly. Meanwhile, on the left, they prop up Kamala Harris. They prop up Cory Booker. They even tried to prop up Alexandria Ocasio in the identity politics light. Because they're using the same, literally, if you haven't noticed, the reason that the left is failing so miserably is because they're using tactics that originated on the right. That's why they're not working for the left. Identity politics wasn't made for the left. It was made for the right that has, it's a simplification of issues based off of identity, because this identity is 70% of the population. You morons, you try to use identity politics on the left, you're going to screw yourself, because the left is made up of people of different cultural backgrounds, like different cultural experiences. They've traveled a lot. They have their own personal grievances, and the right, at some point, they deemed as being insensitive to that, gravitated towards the left. That is, so you're going to be you're essentially going to be codifying a bunch of different identities where they won't mesh eventually, because they feel like their identity is the most important one to deal with. The struggles that their identity goes through are the most important struggles to deal with, and they get divided. However, on the right, 70% of the population looks a certain way. It's easy to play identity politics. But whether you're on the right or the left, the hypocrisy is bought, sold, and used the same. The moment he appeared on Fox News, like a 15-minute segment of them, oh my God, you're so awesome. I'm not going to question anything you said. I'm not going to talk trash about the Democratic Party. The Republican Party. I'm just going to take your word for it. The moment that happened, you should have knew. Like, it was clear and obvious. This man is not on your team. He is not on my team. And the reason I decided to do this video is because it is an important lesson to be learned for everybody. Just because they say walk away from the left doesn't mean that you should then walk into the arms of the right, and vice versa. Don't be one of these shills for attention, for money, for prosperity. Don't be taken advantage of to the benefit of the establishment. Like, they took the Seth Rich narrative and said that it's a right-wing conspiracy theory, even though the only reason that they know about Seth Rich and even started talking about it was because progressives were concerned about other progressives in the movement who had been threatened, and and the facts surrounding his death were really suspect. And so the right eventually got involved, but that was about the left. That was from progressives. But they made it right-wing conspiracy because of what? Because if you can do that, then you delegitimize it in the minds of neoliberals. The left does it too. If you disagree with any policy on the left, 100, like they remember all of a sudden North Korea, like Trump was it was World War III. Was the absolute only result that we were gonna have when Trump came in office. World War III with North Korea, 100% betted. Now it's what? Trump's too soft on North Korea. Trump's way too soft on him. Why is he working with dictators instead of our allies? Actually, unfortunately, he works with some of our allies as well. So, once again, just another example of how both sides are they're hypocritical. They use people. They use narratives to their own advantage. And the moment someone gives you a space without critiquing you, without engaging you in a very serious conversation about it, like people say that Alexandria Ocasio went on CNN, and so therefore she's corrupt and she's an establishment shill. There's certain nuances you can pay attention to figure out if that's true or not, or at least lean one way or the other. If you actually watched the CNN interview, it was not a pleasant one. They were critiquing her. They were questioning her values, questioning her morals, questioning whether or not she could ever be successful again, questioning whether or not even if she could win her race. Like, it was like underhanded, low key. It was like backhanded attacks or compliments, and so you knew that this was to kind of like drag her under and level her. It was not the same with Brandon Straka. It's never been the same for Candace Owens. Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, these people who go on Fox News regularly. Fox News is for entertainment purposes and entertainment purposes only. If you take it seriously, then don't. But MSNBC is no different. If someone goes on there and all Rachel Maddow does is agree, then you should know that there's a problem. That's for my leftists. And if you want actually objective truth, objective rationality, and sound logic and reasoning, well, then subscribe to this channel where we get down to it. And also join justinform.com. Make sure, I know a lot of you have been telling me that you've registered for the platform, and which is good, but make sure that you're using your real first and last name. You don't have to do that for your username, but we do have a security system where we verify every single person that comes through, because as you know, Brock bots do tend to infiltrate websites. They're all over YouTube, all over Twitter, and all over Facebook. We don't want that to be the case on Justin Form. So use your first and last name. Try to enter a bio, even if it's a small one. And also make sure if you have one or can, try to link. We give you a link for a spot for it. Try to link either your Twitter or your Facebook account before you delete it. And that way we can verify that you are a real person, because like I said, the system will boot you automatically if it thinks that you're a bot, first of all. So use first and last name. You can make your username whatever you'd like. The only exception to that rule would be if you are a well-known personality, and if the system or us manually looked you up, it would come up in Google or something to that degree to verify that you are who you say you are, obviously. So, but first and last name. First and last name. And register for Justin Form. All that being said, please do not fall into establishment tricks, into establishment traps. Don't let them take advantage of your emotional state. Don't be reactionary. Please. Be wary of punditry that comes from nothing other than a selfish desire to elevate one's platform and eventually one's bank account. Beware of subjectivity, and please gravitate towards objectivity. And more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.